Welcome to Business Minds. This week, we introduce you to Anoop Kalothia, e-commerce lead at L'Oréal Canada.
E-commerce is only going to grow. Nobody can stop it.
He tells us about how his experience in marketing led him to become an expert in e-commerce from India to Canada.
But then life happened, and I realized that it's very difficult to become an astronaut. And then I started selling shampoos.
He shares with us the secrets of e-commerce as well as his perspective of the future of our purchasing habits.
The penetration of e-commerce grew, and then it did not come down after the pandemic. It's the business of the future. Brick and mortar stores will get more and more digitized.
Make sure to subscribe and enjoy the episode.
5 years back, you would have told I would be doing this podcast sitting in Canada with you. It would have been a far-fetched dream. But yeah, here I am.
Welcome to Business Minds. Today we're delighted to receive Anoop Kalothia, E-Analytics and Insight Manager at L'Oréal Canada. Anoop, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to ask you to define your role in just a few words so our audience can understand a bit better what you do.
So basically I work on the Amazon account as an e-analytics and insights manager, as you said. So basically to look at different data points from different sources and trying to have actionable business insights on it is the key role of my current job.
Excellent, thank you. We will dig a bit more into that later. So first of all, we'd like to have a look at the background of our guests. So my first question regarding this is very simple for you. Where did you grow up and what kind of job were you dreaming to do as a kid?
Well, I grew up in this small town around 100 kilometers from Mumbai, and it's called Tarapur. It's an industrial town. And as a kid, the only thing that I dreamt about was of being an astronaut.
Oh, really? Okay.
But then life happened, and I realized that it's very difficult to become an astronaut. And then I started selling shampoos.
Okay, that was funny. Excellent. And so at a young age, were you already attracted to the world of business at large? You mentioned shampoos. Were you into sales? Is this something that attracted you at the time?
Not really. It was incidental.
Oh, really?
So in fact, I as a kid, when you're growing up in India, and when I was growing up in the 90s, there were only two professions. Either you became an engineer or you became a doctor. And generally, if you became an engineer, first you did your engineering and then you decide what you want to do in life. So I was very similar.
Okay.
And I did my engineering, worked in the tech sector for a couple of years, did not like it as much, did my MBA in marketing, and then landed up selling. I worked with General Mills first. So that was my first job, and then happened to move to L'Oréal, and here I am, 8 years working for L'Oréal.
Perfect. We'll get into more details again a bit later. First of all, what exactly did you study, and in which cities did that happen?
So I did my engineering, which is my bachelor's degree in information technology.
Okay.
That happened in a city called Pune, which is a tech city. And then I did my master's from Mumbai in marketing.
Okay, excellent.
My MBA in marketing.
And while transiting from the bachelor to the master, did you already have a clear goal in mind of where you wanted to go afterwards, if not being an astronaut anymore?
So yeah, astronaut was already out of the window, as I already said. The thing that I knew was I had worked for a couple of years in the tech sector after my undergrad. And one thing which kind of prompted me to do MBA was to understand the larger picture, to have a bird's eye view of what I was doing and what impact it had. In the tech sector, that was very, very difficult to get.
Okay.
Because I was just I never had that understanding of a corporate structure, how it works. And that is what prompted me to do MBA. And honestly, I did not have any roadmap. I wanted to do an MBA in marketing. I was very sure about that because marketing always excited me. But I was not sure where I will land up, like whether it will be in the CPG sector or whether it will be pharma sector or any other sector. So it was kind of incidental.
Okay, interesting. And so before getting into the details of your career, who were your inspiration figures growing up? Did you have any role models?
Growing up, it was mostly cricketers and Bollywood stars
Okay.
that we looked up to. So there's this famous cricketer by the name of Sachin Tendulkar.
Uh-huh.
So I really looked up to him. I also idolized Roger Federer while I was growing up.
Uh-huh. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you for this. And so, starting with the story of your career, you mentioned the 2 years in between the bachelor and the master's degrees. What was this first job about, and what were your responsibilities at the time?
So this first job was with a Indian tech company called Infosys,
Okay.
and it's a big multinational company, and it does a lot of work in the tech sector. It is one of the pioneers of the Indian IT sector. It's largely outsourcing jobs that they do. So most of the outsourced jobs is something that projects go to India, and when you join right fresh out of your undergrad, those are the kind of projects that you are put onto.
Okay.
So I had a project where I was working for Bloomberg for a bit and Microsoft for a bit. So yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And so after this, after doing your MBA, it became a long love story, if I can say so, with L'Oréal.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about all the main steps, the key turning point of your career that made your career what it is today?
Um, well, when I was interviewing for L'Oreal, actually I had interviewed for two other companies at the same time. I was looking for a change at that point in time from
Okay.
General Mills, um, and it was just L'Oreal was incidental. I had another offer, but L'Oreal was giving me a better location.
Okay.
So I joined L'Oreal, and the first year was really rough. I was in a rural location, like an upcountry location, doing sales, and it was very tough at that point in time to understand the product categories and everything. But I had a great manager and mentor and friend by the name of Anshuman Vanchu, and he really helped me kind of get my bearings within L'Oreal, and then help me get a transfer to another location after a while, which really helped, like kind of kept me with L'Oreal. Otherwise, I was at a stage where I was kind of reaching a point where I would have quit L'Oreal in my
Okay.
first stint because it was so difficult. But yeah, so that was, and then I never saw back. So I moved to Mumbai for my second stint, and then I was there for almost 5 years before I moved to Canada.
Okay. Can you tell us the story of each promotion that you got? Because you got several there.
The first couple of transitions happened by themselves. They were the most logical, probable options that would happen.
Okay.
Uh, but finally, after working for 4.5 years in L'Oreal, I wanted to do a parallel switch into e-commerce, which was something that took a lot of doing, a lot of convincing within the system, because it was more of a parallel switch, even a slightly downward switch, if I would say. But I was very clear that I wanted to learn e-commerce because for the first 5 years I had only offline experience.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I wanted online experience, and for that online experience, I had to kind of take a parallel switch. I did that, and yeah, since then I moved to Canada. I again worked in an offline plus online role, and now I'm again into online.
Okay. And so, what attracted you to working more online than offline?
It is not that one is more important than the other, but the thing is that having worked for 5 years in the offline space, I had understood the levers and the different principles on how the offline business functions.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, but online is a different ball game altogether, and this also coinciding with the pandemic, it completely kind of it completely became humongous, especially in the developing countries, especially in India. In Canada, it's still relatively smaller, underpenetrated, but in China, India, it just absolutely kind of became the growth engine for the company. So yeah, so that is what piqued my interest a lot, and I wanted to develop those skill sets because I feel that going forward you will need both offline and online skills, and at an earlier stage I wanted to do that. I could have grown in offline, but then I think it's a long-term decision that will help me in the long term rather than the short term.
Okay, and then afterwards you said you moved to Canada to pursue the next step. What made you move to Canada?
Well, it was more of a personal decision than a professional decision.
Okay.
So I just wanted to explore the world, in all honesty. And living in India for 35 years of my life, it was difficult to explore everything from being based out of there. And I also had this I always wanted to look at live in the developed world for a bit, to at least for a bit to understand how it feels because the life here is very different from what it is back in India. So wanted to experience that for myself. Live in a very multicultural environment, which Canada is probably the most multicultural country in the world. So yeah, I got this opportunity. So yeah, I moved.
How did it happen within L'Oréal? Did you ask for it? Did you manifest your interest within L'Oréal that you wanted to come to Canada?
Absolutely, that's an interesting story. So I kind of tried to, I manifested my interest internally, but unfortunately, they did not have anything at that point in time.
Okay.
So I quit and I just moved. And once I moved here, I ended up applying for a job. Like I had, of course, the L'Oreal India, my ex-managers and the senior leaders were very helpful. They of course provided context to the L'Oreal Canada team that there's so and so person who's moving, and then something worked out in Canada for me.
Excellent. And so now going back to the root of what you're doing now, the e-commerce, can you define e-commerce for us? Because it's something that we seem to all use on some level, but we do not fully understand maybe what it is. So first of all, can you define it? And then what kind of tasks fall into your responsibilities working in e-commerce?
Well, e-commerce is basically commerce online, like as simple as that. Like if your mode of shopping is through your phone or is online, it's e-commerce. uh, and anything that is physical is the offline world or the modern, like the retail, like the old retail. So the tasks are not very different from what it is in the offline, but the mode of it is very, very different. So if you were to say, if I were to ask you, when you go into a physical store, uh, what what are the things that you look at?
Well, what are the products available? Do I have certain needs? And yeah, what is there?
So you walk through the aisles, you browse, and so there are two ways that you kind of look at. One is you're browsing, and while you're browsing, you're also searching for the product that you've come to find. Or you will ask somebody who's there in store to kind of tell you what is there. So it's very important in physical commerce or offline commerce that your product is at an eye level. So if once you there are two or three shelves which are at the eye level. So there is limited space. What the difference between online and offline? One is that um, the digital shelf is unlimited. So,
Yeah.
so there is no physical space is always limited. Number two is that you can search through keywords, which you probably cannot do in an offline space. You can ask,
Yeah.
but there has to be a person whom you will ask.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question as to what is it different that you do in e-commerce versus offline as a manager? It's just the mode of doing things which are different, but ultimately the goals are exactly same. Whether be it offline or online, is to just increase your business as much as you can, increase your market share as much as you can, increase your category size as much as you can.
Okay, and so in your title, we have the analytics and insights keywords. So it says that through the online platforms and everything, you have a lot more data to exploit and to give you more information to better adapt your strategies in marketing. Is that what it is?
Exactly. So, like you've said it pretty much. the apt way. So just trying to, and so all retailers, be it offline or online, share some amount of data with us.
Okay.
So we have some contracts, so they share some amount of data with us. So trying to analyze that data and trying to come up with actionable insights for to improve business, to grow your business further is what my role does.
Excellent. And so following this, what are you most proud of in your career as of today?
Well, I'm not afraid to disagree. And so even if there is a senior leader who's saying certain things, but I feel that I feel a different way. I will commit to the project, but I will say that I disagree with it. But still, I'll commit to the project, and once I commit, I'll completely be committed to it. So, irrespective of what I feel personally, that will be out of the window. So, I've done that. I've shown that you know that quality multiple times in my career. So that is something I'm very proud of.
Okay, a good sign of courage not everybody has, indeed. Now, looking at the other half of the coin, what is the most difficult situation you ever had to face? And do you have any tips of how to get out of such situations?
I think one of the most difficult situations was, as I mentioned, when I wanted e-commerce. Uh,
Yeah.
when I wanted some experience in e-commerce, wanted to learn this, but I was very senior in the offline space, and for e-commerce, I had to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So my mentors, my managers, and all of my well-wishers who I'd worked with for so many years were telling me, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to start from scratch? Like it doesn't make any sense. And they were all trying to convince me that be here, this is the space, you can rise here, there is no point in now getting the e-commerce experience. But I was very sure I wanted the e-commerce experience because in the short term what they were offering me was very lucrative, but I knew that I had the long term vision in my head, and I knew that the e-commerce experience will go a long way in helping in my career. So what I would advise anyone who's doing it is that take risks, be sure of what you want, and even if everyone is saying that it's not the right thing, but if you believe in it, then just believe in yourself.
Excellent, very wise words. And so I would like to circle back on something. You said you had a great interest in working in e-commerce. What is special about working in e-commerce for L'Oréal? Like, this is a global company that sells mostly cosmetic products. What makes it so special? And what is your relationship with the products that you're selling through the online processes?
So, first of all, I think L'Oreal is one of the most advanced companies in the FMCG space when it comes to e-commerce.
Okay.
L'Oreal sets the standards of how business is done on e-commerce.
Okay.
So, L'Oreal e-commerce is probably the best place to be in globally. So that is one. Two, of course, it also helps that we have products which are less bulky and high value, which favors the e-commerce business.
Okay.
Like if you have say a detergent which is $7 but weighs 20 kilos, the freight cost will be very high for the retailer.
That's true.
Whereas if you have a $20 mascara which weighs like 0.5 grams, the retailer will make more money on it.
Oh, yeah.
So the nature of business that L'Oreal is in also favors e-commerce. So, and L'Oreal has kind of identified that and worked on it really well to be able to be the leader in e-commerce business. Second, I'm somebody who's very data oriented, and e-commerce has much more data, is much more rich data that is available, rich and real time data that is available to your access than compared to your brick and mortar retailers, relatively, again.
Yeah.
So, and that data is only going to, with machine learning and AI, that data is only going to have predictive technologies, and it's only going to advance further and further. So that is why I wanted to experience that, because I thought at that point in time that this is the business of the future. And so having your sights on where the world is moving is something very important.
Very interesting. Thank you for this. And so, following this, what are the most important skills that you have acquired in your career, in your opinion?
Well, everything that I've learned in the professional space has been in the last like since I've started working. So when I came, I was absolutely fresh out of the industry when I came. I'm very very grateful to have some great mentors along the way who've kind of helped me learn from absolute basic to where I am today. So yeah, I'm very grateful, and there are lots of skill sets that I've acquired. Like how do you work in teams? How do you manage teams? How do you have a play a leadership role? And data, be it the hard skills of data analytics, or you know it could be any software tools that that we use internally, writing emails, like as basic as that. So everything has been learned. So I cannot point out on a particular skill set, but everything that you see today is because of what, like, it has of course shaped my personality in certain ways as well.
Okay, perfect. And so now I have a question about perception. Since you've done quite a few years, especially in the same company, but still moving from a country to another, how do you think your coworkers perceive you or would describe you? Interested. And has this perception ever changed throughout your career?
Definitely reliable. So I don't think that has changed ever. Um, I can be annoying because uh, because I'm unless I am convinced about, like, either you convince me or I convince you. So if we are, and so yeah, so that is one thing. So I'm sometimes hard to convince on certain topics, but yeah, definitely reliable. Once I'm in the team, like, yeah, I'll I give my 100%.
Excellent. And now you also have held managing position. In your opinion, what is an ideal employee, and how do you notice high potential in employees in your field?
I think it's all about attitude. So it's got nothing to do with anything else. If the employee or anybody you are hiring has the right attitude, wants to learn, if there is willingness to learn, and if they have the right attitude, they will be a right fit. Aptitudes are important, but not as much as attitude, I would say. Like I always look for attitude when I hire anybody.
Excellent. Now, taking a step back, what is the most important thing that you learned in school?
Most important thing, I have to say only one.
You can say a couple.
Well, hard work always pays. So if you're working hard, it will always show in results eventually. And knowledge never goes to waste.
Beautiful way to say it. Thank you very much for this. Now, the next section of the interview will move more to a more vision, a broader reflection of yours through your experience. Number one, in your opinion, at what level or size should a company have its own e-commerce department? You mentioned that L'Oréal was probably ahead of the game in that department. Which kind of companies do you think should have their own department there? And should they maybe all have one? What is your perspective on this?
Well, it depends on the nature of business, on what you are trying to sell. And I think any business is big or small. In fact, most small businesses today first open their online store, because online stores are more scalable. Your reach is wider. So it does not depend on the size or scale of business. I think it depends on the nature of products that you're trying to sell and where your consumers are. So any B2C business, you can sell on Amazon today. By setting up a shop on Amazon is very easy. You have the Shopify's of the world if you are a slightly bigger business. So and every company has their own D2C website. So yeah, online, there are many businesses which are online first, but it, again, as I said, it depends on the nature of products that you sell.
Okay, perfect. And so you mentioned that you enjoyed being part of a business that was growing, that was very satisfying to be part of a growing business. What Why, other than this, do you find e-commerce so interesting slash maybe passionating?
I think I already touched upon it in one of the questions before. So I think it is because I'm somebody who's very data oriented, and
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce has a lot of data points, much more, and the data is much richer and real time as compared to offline. And it's the business of the future. Or in fact, like you can see the amount of time that all of us spend willingly or unwillingly on our
Mm-hmm.
screens today, and the way it is rising, e-commerce is only going to grow. Imagine once Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, when they become the shoppers, the main shoppers or the target segments. They will not go to shops. They will just buy online. So e-commerce is only going to grow. There is no way, like nobody can stop it.
That's an actually good insight. We don't always think about it, but it's pretty obvious. You're right. Now, you also touched about it quickly before. We understand that the COVID pandemic made a very huge impact on the way we consume, the way we purchase any kind of goods. How did you personally experience that period, and what were the consequences? What did you notice from the inside of working in e-commerce?
So when the pandemic hit, actually, we I was still working for offline, and then after a year of the pandemic
Oh
is
yeah,
when I worked for e-commerce. So I saw both things. Of course, the footfall in stores reduced all over the world
yeah.
because of the restrictions. So e-commerce was the choice, like the choice platform of choice, because how the conditions were
Yes.
at that point in time. But gradually, so what happened is the penetration of e-commerce grew, and then it did not come down after the pandemic. Like people got used to e-commerce,
Yeah.
people understood how convenient e-commerce could be, and that penetration is only going to increase now.
Okay, maybe that's a good question. What you mentioned that it was the way to purchase to in the future. Do you think there's any other possibilities, or is there? What do you think is the future is going to look like? Is this? Are we going to abandon completely the brick and mortar
No,
stores?
no, no,
How do
no,
you see
no,
it?
no. The brick and mortar stores will never get abandoned. There will always be brick and mortar stores. But I think what will happen is brick and mortar stores will get more and more digitized.
Okay.
So, a unique identification of an individual, whether he's shopping online or offline, will become more and more like it will become more cohesive. So, imagine if you walk into a store, and but there might be in the future, it could be that there might be screens in which you can interact, you can put your customer ID or something, and then they will have that data for you. And then even if you come home, you decide not to buy, but they know that you went to the store and you kind of surfed a particular product category.
Hmm.
And then you come home. By the time you're home, you're shown ads for the same thing
Yeah.
with a dollar discount.
Yeah.
So those things are even happening today, but are not completely triangulated. It will only improve more and more. And there will be one more O in the omni-channel that will get added, which is basically your metaverse. So
Okay.
the younger generation, when they become consumers and they become the shoppers, uh, they might just shop it. Like I don't know how. I have no numbers for this, but I'm 100% sure that I've seen my nieces and nephews who spend a lot of time in the metaverse.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
so their ecosystem might be in the metaverse. So they might just purchase a product in metaverse and get it delivered to them. So that could potentially happen soon.
Wow. Very interesting. Thank you very much for this. Now, going back to your career path at L'Oréal, this is is it fifth or sixth role in L'Oréal already?
I would say fifth. Yeah, fifth. You
Fifth,
can say.
and so you explained to us the change from the brick and mortar to the online aspects of things. Other than this, what makes L'Oréal so special to work in that it seems to be a company that's difficult to leave?
Uh, It's a very people centric company, so it
Oh,
values its people a lot.
okay.
So people are at the core of our business.
Mhm.
So be it employees, customers, retailers, partners, we value our people a lot. It's a very humane company, um, and that is why I think people stick around. In L'Oreal, we had a saying: either you stay 3 months, or 3 years, or 30 years. So I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, but yeah, maybe 30 years. I don't know.
Excellent. And so you worked for L'Oréal both in India and Canada. What are the main difference, whether it can be culturally or in the way people work, that make L'Oréal different from India to Canada?
Well, there's a fine balance of similarities and differences. All the similarities stem from the brands that we work for. So the brands are very familiar, the internal processes are very familiar, um, and the ways of working are very familiar. But then what is different is it's very Indian. Like it was very the Indian culture kind of comes in when you work in India, and the Canadian culture kind of comes in. So the difference was more because of the country aspect of it
Okay.
than the company aspect of it. There were more similarities that I saw um, in those spheres. But of course, like people here are like the Canadian culture is very different from the Indian culture.
Now that you've experienced several roles of and now of leadership in L'Oréal, and you've climbed the ladder pretty fast, but you're still young. What are your aspirations from now on in your career?
Well, I want to be the CEO of L'Oreal. uh, but yeah, like what I've learned is always dream big. Uh, Keep the picture as bigger as it can be. So I'm not trying to put any ceiling to how far I could grow, but keep challenging yourself, keep doing the good work, and yeah, see where things take you.
Okay, we understand. You haven't been in Canada for that long,
No,
but is there another country, another destination you would like to discover?
I have no idea. Maybe.
Yeah. Too soon
Yeah,
to tell.
too
Okay.
soon to say. Like
Excellent.
for now, I'm happy in Canada, but
Excellent.
I don't know.
Now, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received throughout your career? And would you give the same piece of advice to your 20-year-old self?
Dreaming big is very important, and taking risks is very important. So taking those leaps of faith. So yeah, I would want to take more risks in life, and always not trying to, you know, put a cap on my dreams. Like just dream as much as you can. Like if 5 years back you would have told I would be doing this podcast sitting in Canada with you, it would have been a far-fetched dream. But yeah, here I am doing
Very
it. So
nice. Very nice. And also, you mentioned that L'Oréal was a very people-centered, that
is a
has,
very people-centered.
yeah, culture-wise, company culture-wise. Um, do you have any memories, recollections of good advice or good moments of mentorship that you lived throughout L'Oréal, whether if was in India or in Canada?
Every single day, like so uh, like L'Oreal is full of mentors. Your managers, you can walk up to, we have a very flat hierarchy. You can walk up to anybody, you know, if you want to have a coffee conversation, you can have it with anyone. uh, Canadian culture is of course it it's there in Canadian culture, but it was very new for me even to see it in India, because in India also we L'Oreal had a very open culture. We always promote diversity, inclusion a lot, be it India, be it Canada, across the globe. So it's one of the it's one of the leaders when it comes to DEI as well. So
Okay.
that is very very important for me personally from a value point of view. So yeah,
Okay. Do you have any specific memory of something that you learned from a situation in Iran and you were like quite surprised and grateful that it would not have happened anywhere else? Something that would have maybe helped you understand things a bit about your career.
well, one thing that is popping up in my mind is when we when there was a legalization of same-sex marriages in India,
Yeah.
L'Oreal cut it, like L'Oreal celebrated it. For a culture as traditional as Indian, um, it was a big statement, which really kind of shows what mindset and what value system L'Oreal has.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Now we'll move on to the last few questions of the interview. First of all, what do you have left to accomplish?
Oh, I haven't accomplished much yet. So, although I have had a good journey, but I think there's so much more to accomplish, like learning each day, becoming a better version of yourself, becoming more senior, trying to grow the business even further. So, yeah, sky is the limit.
Excellent. How would you like to be remembered by your coworkers and collaborators once you retire?
Somebody who tried,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Very good. If you could have a private meeting with someone, dead or alive, who would that be?
Dead or alive? I think it's hard to look beyond Mahatma Gandhi. So I have grown up with his stories like folklore. So yeah, it would be amazing to have a conversation with the great man.
Mm-hmm. Very good one. And final question of this interview, what can we wish you for the future?
Best of luck. That's it. In whatever I do, that's it.
Excellent.
And yeah, good health and lots of luck. That's it.
Excellent, then that's all we wish for. Anoop, thank you very much for being with us today. This was Anoop Kalothia on Business Minds.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be interviewed by you guys. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you very much.
Like I really loved the experience though.
Cool,
Yeah,
perfect.
it was fun.